All right, so I always tell students to keep it simple. I've been working in the entrepreneurship space for about 13 years now, and have coached lots and lots of student teams and other teams in presentations, and I always say, one idea per slide, one slide per minute. So they said, you've got 12 minutes. Like, all right, fewer than 12 slides. I've got 10. So hopefully I'm trying to follow my own advice here. So I was asked to follow Jeff Brunel and just kind of talk a little bit about students and entrepreneurship generally. There are a lot of preconceived notions about entrepreneurship, and having worked with the Jago Center here, as well as entrepreneurship programs back at the University of Illinois, and through the Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers and USASB, one of the things that you run into is that a lot of students, when you talk to them about entrepreneurship for the first time, they have a lot of misimpressions and misperceptions. So here's the first one: is no, you don't have to start a business when you're in college, right? So when we did that survey that Jeff referenced, there were a lot of questions in there, and one of the things we were asking is why people weren't interested in choosing an entrepreneurship major for whatever reason. Three really primary reasons. First was there were some people who came from entrepreneurship families and they said, you can't teach it, right? Then there was a group that said, no, because if I do that, then I have to start a business, either in college or right after college. I can't just go work for somebody else. And then the third presupposition was really shocking. He said, employers don't want to see entrepreneurship on my resume because that's going to look bad. They're going to think I'm not going to really stay with them, and so I don't want that on my resume. So I'm happy to announce that all three of those are not true. The reason I put that up there is because if you look at the data, the average age of a first-time entrepreneur in the highest growth spaces is upper 30s, 39, and in fact that actually ticks upward in an economic downturn, presumably because a lot of people are losing their jobs or being laid off, and they say, okay, I'm going to jump in. So the stereotype of the college-age entrepreneur, the Michael Dell, Bill Gates, whatever, people that are dropping out. Yes, there are plenty of people that are doing that, but they're the exception, not the rule. And in fact, somewhere between 80 to 90% of the ideas that people get, most successful entrepreneurs get, for their businesses come from previous employment. So actually, those of us that are engaged in entrepreneurship education want people to go out and work for somebody else and get a lot of experience before you go and start your business. And so our goal with entrepreneurship education is to get people ready to take advantage of those opportunities, to be able to spot them, as Professor Brunel said, and to have really a way of thinking and a set of skills that enable them to be more successful when in fact they do decide, if in fact they do decide to start their business. So no, it's not about necessarily starting a business. That said, I know there are a few people that have or will, and that's great, encouraging people to do that as well. Who you are, what you know, and who you know. Sarah Saraswati is a professor from the Darden School at the University of Virginia, and she did a great study back in the 1990s in which she was exploring what made entrepreneurs different. And she did a series of interviews with successful CEOs that were entrepreneurs, and what she discovered is that one of the things they have in common is that they all start with what she calls the same means: who they are, what they know, and who they know. And so whether you're 35 years old, 45 years old and starting your company, or 19 years old and thinking about it, you're really kind of starting with the same thing. And so you have to ask yourself, well, who am I? What do I know? And who do I know? And you're going to pull all of those things together at some point when you're going to start a business. So where are you going to start? Well, I always tell students, find a problem. And I call this the somebody oughta rule. Every time you find yourself saying, somebody ought to fix this, take care of this problem, that is a potential opportunity. Now, as I mentioned, before, if you're in your upper 30s, you're out of college, you've been working 10, 15 years, you might be aware of more in-depth information, market niches in your particular field, something that's going on in your industry, demographic trends, customers whose needs aren't being met. But even if you're younger and you don't have a lot of experience yet, this is a great place to start. And in my Introduction to Entrepreneurship class, one of the things that I do is I take my students through a problem identification exercise. As I said, you're aware of many more opportunities than you know about. So find a problem. Take a class. Now, I'm not just going to pitch here the entrepreneurship classes, although that's great, we'd love to have you. One of the things that we did when we were making some changes to the entrepreneurship curriculum a couple of years ago, even before we anticipated moving it to a minor, is that we said, okay, let's open up introduction to entrepreneurship outside of the College of Business. Let's get rid of a lot of the prerequisites like management, principles of management. You don't really need that. So it's easier to take entrepreneurship courses here in Mendoza than it used to be. But in addition, entrepreneurship is inherently an interdisciplinary exercise. Professor Brunel mentioned that we have the ESTEAM master's program. Most of those students, if not all of them, have technical backgrounds, technical undergraduate backgrounds. My first experience in developing an entrepreneurship program was in the College of Engineering at the University of Illinois. That was focusing on technology commercialization, largely computer science, electrical engineering. But we reached out and we started engaging faculty and students in fine and applied arts. Why? Because there are faculty and students in design, in industrial design, in Catholic design, that are involved in this. So when I say take a class, look broadly. There may be courses in engineering. There could be courses in fine arts. There are certainly going to be courses in business. We created at the University of Illinois a Faculty Fellows program whereby we invited faculty from all different disciplines to come in and do a 2-day workshop where they learned about entrepreneurship and then put together a course proposal where they were going to teach entrepreneurship through the lens of their discipline. This was a really fascinating exercise because what we found was that there were faculty members in the Department of English that were interested in entrepreneurship, and they developed courses that were looking at depictions of entrepreneurs in American literature. There were faculty in East Asian languages and cultures that were looking at the correlation between entrepreneurial behavior and liberalization of politics in China, for example. So we had faculty in social work that were looking at taking a more entrepreneurial approach to the delivery of social services, something that you see a lot of in social entrepreneurship. So when I say take a class, there might be all kinds of places where you're going to be able to think about that. In addition to entrepreneurship classes here at Mendoza, we also have courses in innovation and design, and there's a close correlation between entrepreneurship and innovation in a lot of spaces. So if you're interested in this, if you're curious about it, even if you're telling yourself, never in a million years would I be an entrepreneur, I can tell you you're probably wrong. One of the constant myths that you hear is that, well, you're born that way. And it's not that people aren't born entrepreneurial, there are certainly people like that. But there are as many, if not more, entrepreneurs who never thought that they would start businesses. But it's just one of those things where the right opportunity meets preparedness, and they think, you know what, I think I can do this, and I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. Sometimes when you take a class, you find out that you have skills and abilities and interests that you never knew you had. Use the alumni. Jeff Brunel mentioned the Irish Entrepreneurs Network and the Irish Angel Network, but even if someone is at a school that doesn't have a specific group of alumni whose total focus is on entrepreneurship or innovation, I guarantee you, if you talk to the Alumni Association of a school, they are going to know entrepreneurs. Why? Because those are the people whose names are on the buildings. So the Alumni Association has a vested interest in knowing who the alumni are who've been successful entrepreneurs. So it's a great resource for students because alumni are always eager to give back. They're interested in talking to students. They want to communicate their information. They're sometimes eager to give internship opportunities. So utilize the alumni. If you don't know where to start, go to the Alumni Association and ask them. Just say, you know what, I'd like to know more about it. Who could I talk to? Alumni are an invaluable source. A state school might have anywhere between 500 and 600,000 living alumni. A smaller school like Notre Dame might have 150,000 living alumni. I guarantee you there's someone in that group that would be willing to talk to you and share their experience with you. Just ask them questions. is on campus? One of the challenges, if you're involved in entrepreneurship, technology, commercialization, innovation, et cetera, is that universities tend to be fairly siloed. So the people in science are working in their space, the people in art and design are working there, then there are those in business, and so on, and they don't often communicate with each other. Well, you can't really do that in entrepreneurship, innovation, and technology commercialization. So we've had to work very hard to create not just a network of interaction, but to publicize that so that everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And the only way sometimes that you're going to find out is to ask, well, what's going on in the College of Science? What's going on in the College of Engineering? So I mean, just here at Notre Dame, which is a relatively small school compared to others, we have the Jago Center for Entrepreneurship here in the College of Business. We have the ESTEAM program, which is jointly operated between the College of Business, Science, and Engineering. There is a group involved with design thinking that's run by Dennis Jordan, who's a professor and associate dean in the School of Architecture as well as in design. There's innovation and design groups. There is the Irish Angels, as we mentioned, Innovation Park, which is across the street. Most students don't know that there are that many resources on campus. And if you are at a large state school, you might multiply that by 2 or 3 times. Some schools have, an entire vice president's office that's responsible just for technology commercialization, economic development. So ask the question, what else is on campus? How can I get involved? You've got Innovation Park, for example, is going to have more and more startups that are involved over there. There might be internship opportunities. There might be opportunities to just go over there and talk to entrepreneurs and ask questions. Go work for a startup. It's been interesting having taught entrepreneurship here now for about 3 semesters. I'm starting to get students that come to me in their senior year and they say, okay, I'm going through the traditional career services process and I'm beginning to think that maybe this isn't what I want to do. The problem is that if you want to go work for a startup, they don't come and interview on campus. You don't necessarily have a list of them someplace. They're outside of the traditional milieu of career services. There's a couple of current student and former student entrepreneurs here, and you can probably ask them, pick their brains about that. But you have to do a little bit of digging if you want to go work for a startup. But it's a great opportunity. Again, if you're in a school like ours where we've got a research park with startups in it, that's a great place to start. If you don't know that, well, who would I talk to? Talk to the Alumni Association. Talk to your local Chamber of Commerce. Talk to your small business development center that might be located in your city and say, do we have any startups? Right? The great thing about working for a startup, even if it's just for summer, you won't get paid very well, but you're going to get to shadow the founder and see everything that they're doing on a daily basis. So it's a wonderful way of learning from the ground up everything that's involved in starting a company and running a startup. And sometimes the fact that it doesn't pay very well is more of a disincentive than others. The nice thing about a down economy is that a lot of people are saying, well, I don't have anything else to do anyway, so I may as well go work for free and get some experience, or for a reduced wage, but well worth it. On the flip side of that, right, remember I said that one of the things that students told us is that they were concerned that established employers wouldn't want to see entrepreneurship on their resume. I can't tell you how wrong that is, right? So I will give you the cynic's perspective on it, okay? The average amount of time that somebody spends in their first job is 4.5 years. So believe me, when you graduate and go work for XYZ Corporation, they know there's a very good possibility that you're not going to be staying there 40 years, getting your gold watch and retiring. I mean, that ship has sailed a long time ago. But the positive or more upbeat view of this is that managers, CEOs, boards of large established companies are really looking at this stuff. And they've read Clayton Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma, The Innovator's Solution. They know that they are going to have to innovate in order to compete. And they also realize that the skills necessary to commercialize new technologies, to beta test things, to spin them out, are not necessarily the same sort of strategy and management skills that people get in a traditional business education. It's value add on top of that. and that it requires different experience. So they're now aggressively looking for students that have experience with that, either in school, having taken classes and that kind of thing, and or ideally both, having had some experience with startups. So not only is it not a negative to have entrepreneurship or innovation on your transcript or resume, but in fact, it really is an added benefit. In many cases, you're not going to have to make that sell to the large employer that you might be interviewing with. They're going to be interested in selling you and telling you how to, why you want to come work for them. As proof, just last week, Professor Karen Seidert, in her Principles of Management class, had a gentleman named Martin Curran here, and he was speaking, and his position, he's the Vice President of Corporate Innovation for Corning. Corning class out of upstate New York. That's his whole focus, is innovation and how to keep that company on the cutting edge of the products that they produce. So, and you could name lots of other ones, but so even if you don't want to go work for a startup, you think you actually want to go make some money, the good news is that there's a lot of companies out there that are interested in hiring with that. A cup of coffee. That's where I'm going to close, right? What do I mean by this? This is sort of the last myth, really, that I'll leave you with today. There's tons of them, but a lot of people think that, well, if I am interested in starting a company, I'm going to need to have a lot of money, and I have to go get angel investment. I need $100,000, or I need venture capital. All right, well, I'm going to burst that bubble right now. 99.97% of all startups never get venture capital, ever, and that's in a good economy. Only 1 in 12 startups ever gets any kind of equity funding. So where does the money come from? Most people, it's their savings. Back when you could get 2 mortgages, people would take out a second mortgage. The average amount of money that it takes to start a business runs somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000. That's where what most people have. So where do they get that from? They save it up, right? Or they max out their credit cards. So this is why I'm saying a cup of coffee, if you just saved up the amount that it takes to buy 1 cup of coffee at Starbucks or any cafe of your choice, and you did that every day, starting when you were a freshman in college, by the time you were the age that most people are when they start businesses, mid to upper 30s, you would have more than enough money, even assuming interest rates stay low. You would have more than enough money to start a business. So the whole point is just to start putting away that, what does a cup of coffee at Starbucks cost now? $5? $3.50? $5 a day, put it aside. You're going to have enough money by the time you're ready to do it. And that's it. Thank you.